Hey folks, today I'd like to walk you through the unboxing and setup of my new Bucktool DC50 dust collector. Before I do that, I'd like to explain why I ended up buying a separate dust collector in the first place. So I am an amateur woodworker. I certainly have no pretensions to being able to do very fancy work, but I do putter around the place and build things that I need. And of course, when you work with wood, you do have dust. So using plans found on the internet and of course innumerable YouTube videos, I built this two-stage dust collector consisting of a DeWalt small vacuum hooked up to a bucket with a dust deputy sand trap or dust trap in the top. And from the perspective of collecting dust, this works wonderfully. The bucket collects about 98 to 99% of the dust, and I'm pretty happy with it. The one thing I found that was a problem was that the suction out of my vacuum simply wasn't powerful enough to service a couple of the tools that I had. In particular, it's not sufficient to grab the dust or the pieces that are coming out of my planer. Now this is a helical planer, so it actually produces only small bits of wood. It doesn't have the long films of wood that a blade-based planer produces. But still, the volume is so high that my vacuum wasn't and isn't able to keep up. Furthermore, I recently invested in a drum sander, and this one also produces way too much dust for my vacuum to keep up with. And this is particularly obvious when you are sanding wood like Paduk, which produces a lot of heavy oily dust, and the lack of good dust collection means that my sandpaper gets clogged very quickly, and it actually scratches wood, and I had to spend a lot of time cleaning off the paper and the conveyor. And finally I decided to invest in a small external powerful dust collector that will help me use the tools as the way they are designed to do. Well, here's the box. It took about a week to arrive from Amazon, and it weighs about 60 pounds. Okay. This is the hook from which the filter bag hangs, I guess. This is the base. Now one of the reasons I picked the Bucktool was because it had a smaller base than some of the competitors. It is still fairly big, though it's definitely not as big as some of the other products in this range. Okay, lots of padding, nicely packed. Okay, what do we have here? This appears to be the handle that we can use to drag the thing around. Very nice, solidly constructed. Here's the hole. Now this is a bit smaller than I expected. The thing said 10 feet. This definitely is not 10 feet, it's more like 5 feet. Still. Okay, some more padding. And these are the legs of the product. Okay, nice and heavy. More padding. Now here is, I think they have some bags. It looks like they have the filter bag and one plastic bag to hold the Okay, now we have some hardware here. These are the belts that go around the product and keep the things from, attach the belts and the garbage bag to the unit. We have the wheels, front wheels and rear wheels, and okay, these are the ties to attach the hose, I guess, to the product. More hardware and this thing for, I guess, attaching the dust exhaust. And now the base of the core of the product itself. This is heavy but appears to be extremely solid and well constructed. And that's it for the contents of the box. Okay, so this is the product manual. There's not much to it. Most of the manual is just safety instructions, and the actual assembly instructions are just 3 or 4 pages. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is attach the rear wheels. For that, I don't know whether you can actually see this, but we have these 2 big wheels, and as far as I can tell, they appear to be symmetrical. You have these 2 axles. We have these little kind of, I don't know what they're called, but these little pins that go into these holes on the axis. And then we have these 2 nuts. It's pretty straightforward. What you do is take the axle and you take this sort of blunt end and you introduce it to the hole out here. And then you take one of these pins here and then you insert them through. Oh man, it's not easy here. I think I probably need a. Okay, there you go, come on. Similarly, the other side, you introduce the axle. You take the little pin here and then you drive it through the hole. Now we get the wheels. And the wheels go in through these little holes over here, and they are tied. They're attached with these nylon nuts, like so. Okay, so what we appear to need a 11 by 16 wrench for this. I think that's maybe a bit too tight. Yeah, that's tight enough. Okay, now we do the other side. The other wheel. I don't know if you can still see all this, probably not. Here we go. And the nut. Now it's time to mount the front wheels, and again I must say the instructions leave a lot to be desired. The idea is that you're supposed to put these wheels against these pre-drilled holes, and you're expected to do these screws to just screw the base of the wheel onto onto the base of the dust collector itself. Now what's confusing is that the instructions, the separate hardware includes these spring washers, and there's no other place to use them, so I assume that I'm supposed to use a spring washer to along with these screws. However, there are only 7 supplied spring washers, but they are separate actually in 9 screws and an additional nut, and I'm not sure where this is supposed to go. Okay, so the next thing you have to do is take the legs and mount them to the base. There are 2 legs, and you're supposed to mount them with these little screws here that the manual calls hex washer head bolt. I suppose it's as good a name as any. So let's see. Now the next thing that has to be done is to seat the motor on top of these stands, and the black part, the little butts of the motor has to go into the red legs, and that's a bit of a pain. I'm struggling to get that in on the other side because the thing doesn't quite fit. Okay folks, I finally managed to get that thing seated, but boy, I gotta tell you, that is not easy because they just didn't fit, and I had to really go with that red leg with the wrench and twist and turn it about quite a bit before the thing actually seated. That they could have made that easier, and it would have helped if I had at least one person helping. But it's in now. Okay, so what we're supposed to do next is to take 4 more of these and then attach them, use them to attach the motor housing to these legs. And there are screw holes on the bottom, on the rear and the front. And one thing that I see straight away is that these things are not fitting directly because as I said earlier, these things are not machined to fit together correct. So I suspect it's going to be a bit of a struggle for me to get these screws in there and all tight. It's also going to attach the handles. And this is the handle. And the handle goes on to the thing. Let's see, this way, and the handle attaches to this through these 4 slightly longer bolts from the sides. Now the manual doesn't call out these bolts explicitly, they just refer to them as the hex bolts, but these are clearly not hex bolts, so another area of lack of quality control in the manual. But still, a tip for you is not to tighten any of these screws until the handle is already also seated, and tighten all the screws together. Okay, so since I don't have a helping hand here, I'm going to have to find a way to hold all these things together while I attach this thing to the side. A little bit of lack of quality control here from the part of Bucktool. Still, I suppose it could be worse. Time to tighten things up. Now, if you want to use your own spanner, what you need is a 12mm thing. Yes, it's metric. Okay folks, after a tremendous amount of pain, I managed to get 3 of the 4 screws in from the front and the rear, and I did get all the side screws in, and that will have to do. It seems strong enough, but come on Bucktool, you could have done a better job of this. It shouldn't be this difficult to get these screws lined up. The next thing on the agenda is to attach the bag hanger, and it comes with a little thread at the end of it, and there is a little socket here for the thread to fit into, so you just put the thing in here and you keep turning this until it goes all the way in. That is simple enough compared to the pain I went through so far. The next thing to do is to attach this this pipe here, and the way it's supposed to get done is using a screw. So you just kind of position the exhaust on top of it, and then you use the screw to, that's a 9 screw. I was wondering what the extra screw was for. Extra bolt rather, and this appears to be it. I just put it here and use a screwdriver until this goes all the way in. So it appears that the package comes actually with 2 filter bags. I thought they had only 1. Are they filters or are they? No, I'm sorry. This one is the bag that collects the dust, the bottom, and this appears to be the filter. So yeah, 1 bag and 1 filter. So Bucktool has also included 2 plastic dust bags in the package. That's nice of them. I guess I'll find the use for it. But for now, I'm going to just start and install the cloth bag. Okay, let's attach the filter bag first. So the bag comes with a little hook on the top that you drape over this little thing over here. And then you position the bottom of the bag over this receptacle here, like this. Okay. And then you use this metal belt, just like you do the regular belt. The belt goes into these little holes here and goes all the way around. Oh, I finally got it done, but I need some help. I need to get my wife to hold these things in the bottom while I tighten the belts. I don't think I could have done it by myself, so this is definitely a two-person job. To attach the hose, you have to slide the hose on the end of it first, then you use the little doohickey to tighten it up. Not sure whether you can see much of this, but the idea is that you sort of position this over the hose, get this little screw over here, and then tighten the screw until the thing is nice and tight. Okay, it's all hooked up, and man, I can tell you those connectors were not easy. But let's turn this on now and see what happens. Well, so there you have it. It's done. And one thing I should mention is that it does come with these different adapters. It comes with a little black thing that attaches to the end, and you know, it's supposed to be there all the time, and then you can attach this to these various adapters that come with the product. So you can attach it to or adapt this to a number of different machines in your shop. It's been a couple of days, and I started playing around with the dust collector a bit, and there are a lot of things I really like about it. To start with, I really appreciate the adapters that they supplied with the unit. They allow me to hook up the dust collector to nearly every machine in my shop without having to spend money on additional adapters or trying to mess around with PVC connections. For example, the out-of-the-box adapter allows me to connect the dust collector to my two-stage filter. It fits just fine on my joint dust collection port and on my planer. Unfortunately, it turns out that the supplied adapter doesn't quite fit on top of my sander. However, there are things that puzzle me, because my vacuum is supposed to be a 100 CFM unit, and when I hook it up through my two-stage connector, the pressure I get at the inlet, when I compare it to the pressure I get when I hook up the new dust collector through the same thing, I can't feel too much difference in pressure. You know, the Bucktool is supposed to be a 750 CFM unit, so you would expect a fair bit more pressure here compared to when I hook up my vacuum, and I don't feel that. So I need to do some debugging as to why that is the case. So after using this for a couple of days, what are my options? What are my opinions? Well, to start with, I like it. It's a solid, well-constructed unit. When the 4-inch hose is connected, it has a fair amount of suction. Definitely satisfies my expectations. It is well built. There's a couple of things about it that I wish was different. For example, the manufacturing quality could have been improved. The holes in the screws could have lined up a little bit better. I do wish they had provided us a little bit more flexible range of connectors. I do wish the hose was a bit longer. But these are minor inconveniences. For the price I paid, I would say that I am quite happy with the unit, and I have no problems with recommending it to anyone who may be considering a dust collector for a small shop. Thank you.